This week, we are talking to a relatively new member. Some of you may not have even met Sam Busilla before, but she is a vegan, and what kind of piqued my interest in her is that she also played sports in college. So definitely two things you do not often see go together, and I had a lot of questions about how she made that work. But if you are looking to go vegan, vegetarian, or just find more ways to incorporate plant-based foods into your diet, this is a really great listen, so I hope you guys enjoy what she has to say. Today, we're learning about how to be a vegan. Tell me, I guess, explain exactly how you eat, just because there are many different types of vegan or vegetarian. Where are you at?
So my diet consists of whole plant-based, so that means no meat, no dairy, no animal byproduct. So things like honey, things like gelatin, so stuff that you wouldn't really think of, whey protein, stuff like that I can't eat. And I like to do a lot of raw food, so there's still a lot of processed vegan foods that you can eat, but I like to look for the whole food, so to make things basically from the ground up, like you create everything you eat.
Okay. Now, when you say raw, do you mean like you prefer to eat stuff cold or just?
Both. Okay. So I try to make one of my meals a day raw, and then use those same ingredients to make like a real meal. So like if I eat raw vegetables for something with like a dip that I've made, I will use those vegetables later and repurpose them into, I don't know, like a stir fry or something along those lines.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. So I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but what made you change to go vegan? Because you did it a long time ago, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually rounding up to my 9 years of being vegan. So wow. My freshman year of college, it was my first collegiate year of playing soccer, and my coach was like, you got to do something about your performance. And honestly, I believe a lot of what we do stems from what we're eating. So I decided to transition totally into vegan. So I started doing that in February of my freshman year, and it wasn't easy, especially when you're relying on dining hall food. So I really had to learn what it was, and I really had to have conversations with the people that work there to know what's in it, what I'm eating, and it really opened my eyes to what we eat and what we don't always realize we're eating.
Okay. So was it intentionally to get away from meat, or was it more with the goal of improving the quality of your diet?
So I haven't eaten meat since I was 9, which was like a really big deal in my family, because my family's super Italian. Everything was meat and cheese, or like a combination of those two at every meal. So I have 2 older brothers, and my oldest brother is 13 years older than me, and he went vegetarian, and I did it because I thought he was cool. So my parents were like, oh, you'll last 2 weeks, and if you tell me that, I'm gonna blow your guests out of the water.
So spite is what made you vegan?
Pretty much.
Okay,
so I went vegetarian when I was 9, like right around Thanksgiving, and I just never transitioned back. So when I went vegan, I was really just cutting out dairy and then the animal byproducts, but honestly, that was my biggest problem, was dairy. Like I just ate far too much of it, and it's really like, cheese is great, but it's not really good for you, and I was eating it in an abundance. So it was really just cutting out those kinds of things, and it just put me on a better path.
Okay, so would you say like freshman year of college, was that where plant-based became, I guess, better? It became better quality? Is that where you made an adjustment there?
Yeah, so my freshman year in the fall, so through my first soccer season, when we would have a practice or a lift and we weren't done until 8 or 9, the upstairs dining hall would be closed, so you have the bottom. So I would get like deep fried green beans and a big bowl of mac and cheese, or like pizza, or all of those things. And so that was part of my problem. Like, just I didn't know how to balance it, and I didn't feel like I needed to look for better options, because I was like, well, I just worked out for 4 hours, so it doesn't matter. But it did, and it was showing on the field, which is, I'm thankful my coach said something to me. But so February, I said, all right, I'm just gonna try it for like a couple weeks, and it felt good, so I just kept doing it.
And were you able to make the changes in dining hall, or did you have to start making things on your own?
No, I was able able to make changes in the dining hall. Just sometimes you just had to plan ahead. So if I knew the upstairs dining hall was going to be closed, like take something back to the dorm room, put it in the fridge, whether that be like a salad, or I'm trying to think, like I do a lot of legumes and things like that. So like making sure I have pockets of that I could bring home. And then sometimes I would have to run to like Giant and get something else, like a protein bar or some fruit or things like that probably wouldn't keep all day.
Okay.
And leave it in my room.
Okay. And I know like one of the big questions too, and especially playing a collegiate sport, I'm sure one thing that influenced your performance a lot was getting the right amount of protein, and how were you doing it?
So that's always the first question that everybody asks me.
Yeah.
So it's not as hard as you think. So like I said, I do a lot of legumes. So whether that be like beans or lentils or something along those lines, like lentils have a ton of protein in it, and you can eat them just as they are, but you can also grind them down and make them into a paste or put them in something, and you don't always know the difference. Peanut butter is a big one for me. I have to be careful because it's a lot of sugar and it's high like caloric, but I love peanut butter. I don't really do a lot of supplements. Like I have protein powder, so if I have a really tough workout one day, I might use it, but that's not something I use often. I'll buy milk that has protein in it, so almond milk will have like a protein enhanced version of it, so just making sure I do it that way. And a lot of mock meats have very high protein counts. So seitan is one of my biggest, but I think it's the best one. Like some of them kind of are gross. Seitan is made out of vital wheat gluten, so it's a wheat-based protein. But I mean, one serving you could get 25 grams of protein.
Oh, that's great.
So I mean, that's not the one that I'm always nervous. Like my protein intake never makes me nervous. I actually find it's pretty easy. Like chia seeds, like things that are just they're easy to keep in your pantry to throw in something. And like nuts, like things like that are just easy to grab a quick snack, and you can just piece that together to get the protein you need in a day.
I think it's really illustrative of a great point that gets overlooked in diet. I think a lot of times people are looking for this one change that is going to give them 50% improvement. And what you're saying is essentially, no, it's this little change here and this one here. So you're getting, maybe you're only getting 5 grams from here, and then 7, and then 12 from here. But that's what it has to be, and really that's what you want if it's going to be sustainable, rather than these big like sweeping changes.
Right.
Now, would you say like the big ones like the either seitan or tofu or lentils, are those like things you're eating every single day, or is that more?
I would say I have some type of lentil or bean or nut every single day.
Okay.
At least 2 meals I will, or as a snack. Soy is not something I overdo because there's so much mixed information on soy. Like an overabundance of it isn't good, and it can be so processed. So like I love tofu, and I know most people don't, but you again can use it in so many different ways. But I try not to do too much soy. I haven't heard anything really bad about seitan. So, and I can make it from scratch, and you just buy vital wheat gluten and you mix it with flour, and you can turn it into so many things. So yeah.
I think it's like everything else though. Everything in moderation. Because even if you are eating meat, I still would not recommend that you eat red meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day.
Right.
It's a variety. So whether it is a meat substitute or whatever it is, I think variety. But soy for whatever reason has lots of opposing information about it. But variety, mixing things up. Are there any other restrictions that you put on what you eat, or any allowances that you do make that wouldn't fall right in line with the typical vegan approach?
So like I try and substitute agave for things that are honey, but like if there's honey in something that's already made, I'm not really a big stickler about that. Vegan is tough as it is, so there are some things you just have to every once in a while make allowances for. That's my big one. Honestly, I've not slipped up on dairy. I've not slipped up on meat in almost 20 years. So, but I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way to do vegan if you're doing it for the purpose of being healthy. So this goes back to your other question. Like when I was in college, I did it wrong for a while. So like Oreos are vegan. A pound of pasta is vegan.
Yep.
They have vegan substitutes for cheese. Like I can eat all those things. I can eat a whole pack of Sour Patch Kids if I want to. But like, so you think that in your head, you're like, oh, I can eat this, so I'm going to. Mm-hmm. So I actually, for a while, and I should have said this earlier, it didn't work for me. For my sophomore season, it wasn't working right. Mm-hmm. Then I went totally clean, raw vegan, where I literally cooked nothing for an entire summer between my sophomore and junior year. And I ended up losing too much weight, not getting enough protein. Like I had like a 20-pound drop, but like not in a good way. Like I lost a lot of muscle. And then by my senior year, I figured it out. Like it took me 2 years to really figure out how to do it correctly so that my body was getting what it needed while also still being able to enjoy my life, but not overdoing it one way or the other. So it wasn't like I woke up one day, I was like, I'm going to do this, and I did it perfectly. Like it didn't work that way. I woke up and I was vegan one day, but it took a lot for me to figure it out. It took me a lot to learn about food and things that I liked, and I needed to be more exploratory with things that I was like, oh, I don't think I like that. But it's all about using what you have and repurposing it into something else. And so it took a while. Now it's really easy, but my first 2 years, it just took a lot of reading about it, talking to other people, researching, figuring out what I liked and what I didn't, but not totally just going all into the processed vegan foods that are great and taste good, like potato chips, and then not going totally like you're not getting what you need and you're really unhappy every day because your food sucks. Yeah. So it was that balance of finding the middle ground.
Yeah, just eating cold broccoli again and again. And
yeah, or just like making hummus and just dipping raw stuff in it, like.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, good on you for continuing to work through it, because I'm sure there were lots of frustrating times, especially if you were seeing your performance directly affected with what you were eating. But yeah, I think marketing preys on all of our desire to be healthy by slapping a sticker on a box that says vegan or gluten-free or organic or whatever it happens to be. And, you know, while I think healthy can be a little bit black and white as far as the principles, the rest of it is so gray, and it takes experimenting. It's almost like learning a new skill, and whether that's something you're learning in the gym, playing soccer, whatever it is, you don't just walk out onto the soccer field day one and just pick it up. And nutrition is exactly the same. There's trial and error. That's interesting. It took you that long, 2 years to get it nailed down. Okay. Since then, have you had to make any changes? Or is it basically the same?
Since my senior year, so that would have been 2015, 2016, I haven't had to, like, because I figured it out, and I was performing as the best that I could have, and I was sad that it took me until my senior year to figure it out, because I wish that I had more time to perform at the level that I was performing. I mean, I went and played in the WPSL, so like I had the opportunity to keep playing, but it's a different experience. Like you're not playing for your college, you're not like with that core group of people. So it was a different experience, but I mean, I felt better. I felt more energized. I felt like I could sustain a high level of energy longer because the things that I was eating was giving me a base to burn throughout whatever I needed to do. It wasn't something that was like a quick fix and then I just dropped. So, I mean, it worked for me. I know veganism won't work for everybody, but it worked for me.
Right. Now, why do you think it works?
It keeps me on track. So, I was talking to someone at work the other day, and because it's the last week of school, people were bringing in a ton of stuff. So, the faculty room had pizza and donuts and cookies and all these things. I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. And if I wasn't vegan, I would have taken one of all of those things because I literally I don't have self-control with that stuff unless I set myself on a plan where I'm determined not to break it. So like, I like the lifestyle that I created, and as much as I want to eat that, it'll set me back. Like I would eat one and then I'd probably eat 4. because that's how I am. So it just keeps my mind set on, like, this is my goal, this is what I want to sustain, this is what has worked for me, and I don't want to go backwards.
I think there's some value in making a good decision one time, saying, well, I'm the type of person who does not eat the slice of pizza, rather than every single time you come across a slice of pizza being like, no, don't eat that pizza.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if we're left to our own devices making that decision a million times, I mean, the odds are you're not going to make the right one as often as you'd like. So I think there's some value in that. You make the decision beforehand. Now, you mentioned planning when you were going to, like, the dining hall. Now you're obviously not eating in a dining hall, but what other habits have you had to use to stay on track and to make it, I guess, somewhat convenient to stick to what you want to do?
Planning my list. So it's hard during school, like when I'm coaching and I have to go to work every day, but like I'll try on the weekends, like I plan out a rough thought in my head of what I want to eat that week. So I know I have to pack lunch every day, and I know I need to eat dinner, and I don't want to eat the same thing every single day.
Right.
So I'll pick 4 meals and make a grocery list for it, and I can alternate it. So I bought containers where I can portion my lunches out in advance, so Monday to Friday, and I just take it out, I put it in my lunchbox, and it's really easy, and I don't have to think about it. And sometimes if I'm at soccer really late, or if I know I'm not going to be home in time to eat when I want to eat, I'll just bring 2 of those containers and make sure they're just 2 different foods. But it's just, I have to know what I want to buy at the grocery store, otherwise I'm just going to aimlessly walk around and buy a bunch of stuff that isn't going to go together.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sit and snack all day. I want to eat like real substantial meals, and otherwise, if I don't plan for myself, like I said, I'm just going to buy stuff that doesn't make sense. So that's what I do. Like or I'll make something and freeze it. So if I know I have a really easy week or something, I'll make a bunch of stuff and freeze it. And then I know I can just throw it in the oven, or just let it defrost, or throw it in a pan, and it'll be good to go. So I like to do that a lot too.
I love it. Simple. Yeah, a little bit of forethought makes the decision a little bit easier down the road. Now my last question is kind of twofold. So if someone wants to either just introduce more plant-based foods into their diet, or they want to go all the way vegetarian or vegan, where would they start? And then do you have any recommendations on like resources that you've used? Because you mentioned trying to find what other people are doing.
Yeah. So I had a friend in college who also needed to get on a better track, and I said, I can help you, but you're gonna have to commit to what I do. I said, I'll cook all your food. I said, I will do whatever I can to get you here. And she was like, well, I don't think I can do that. And I was like, okay. So one of the things that I read about was meatless Mondays. So just cutting out meat every single Monday. So we did that for a while, and then a couple days a week we did it. And then there's another diet. It's an actual diet that people follow. It's called Vegan Before 6. So you'll eat a vegan diet all day until you get to 6 o'clock, and then like dinner you'll eat whatever you want to eat. And it's just a slow introduction to what it looks like, and that doesn't mean you'd have to do it every day. Like if you did Vegan Before 6 3 days a week, it gets your body used to some of those changes without cutting out cold turkey. Like for me, it was easier because I already had meat cut out of my diet, but I know a lot of people that's something they eat every single day.
Sure.
But like I said, the dairy was the hardest part for me, because like
cheese is so good.
Cheese is so good. I know. I tell people all the time, they think it's weird, and I'm like, my mom would buy those fresh mozzarella balls, and I would eat them like an apple. Like
oh my goodness, okay.
Like my eating habits were so bad, and I was a very picky eater until I started doing this. So she started to learn the things that she liked by letting me introduce her to stuff, and she ended up, dropping the weight she needed to lose. She also said she felt like she had a whole lot of energy, and she doesn't sustain that anymore, but it worked being a collegiate athlete when we needed to perform at a high level all the time. Right. She did go totally vegan for like 3 months, and it worked for her, but it was baby steps, like no meat a couple days a week. Don't eat anything that's not vegan before 6 o'clock 2 times a week. And then we just gradually added it, and like I wasn't pushing her. I said, it's the only way I know how to help you, because it's what I'm doing. I said it might not work for you, but it worked for her. It won't work for everybody because you have to be really regimented. You have to be really dedicated to it, and you have to. It's annoying. Like every time you go to the store, you have to sit and read every single label before you're gonna buy something. Like if you're not gonna buy those Whole Foods, like things that don't need labels. Like if I buy a bag of carrots, I know that it's a bag of carrots. If I'm buying lemons, I know that it's lemons. But if I'm gonna buy veggie straws, I need to go through and read it to make sure I know what I'm eating. And it really opens your eyes because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this stuff is in food. Like I just sometimes just read things. I'm not a big potato chip person, but like I keep them in the house if people come over, but I have to read them because I want to make sure I can eat it.
Right.
And it's fascinating to me that like some things will be like, they'll have lard in it. And I'm like, why is there lard in potato chips? But it's what they're fried in. So like even little things like that, where I told her, I was like, make those changes. Just start reading what's in your food. And that was helpful. I mean, and the resources, it's tough because I like to watch documentaries because I think you'll learn a lot from them. Just, you have to take everything that's said with a plant-based documentary that's being pushed with a grain of salt because they're advocating for you to do something.
Right.
So you need to read in between the lines of like, okay, this stuff has validity. This stuff they just are saying because they think it's a better choice for you. But it does open your eyes to, you know, what goes into your food, the things that are meat-based, like what goes into those animals that you're eating. Like I learned so much about a lot of things. So that always worked for me. So I did. I watched a lot of documentaries. And if those people, like the people that I thought were common grounds, like I didn't feel like they were forcing it down my throat, they were just like telling me stuff, I would look them up and see like, did they have blogs? Did they have cookbooks? Did they have things like that? So I went out and I bought cookbooks of people who I saw in documentaries, and I would try those out because I just felt like they knew more than me, and I didn't know what to do right away. So those were the resources that I use. If you know anybody, talk to them. Like people that have been doing it, just talk to them and see like what's worked for them and what hasn't. And like you said at the beginning, veganism looks different for everybody. Like if you're doing it for health, if you're doing it for, you know, animals or whatever you're doing it for, it's gonna look different how you eat. Yeah. So like I could go to Burger King and get an Impossible Whopper. It's vegan, but like that's not really my goal. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Talk to people, watch media on it, look stuff up. Like I said, blogs of people that are doing it or have done it.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's being flexible with whatever you set out as your initial goal. Be a little bit flexible, be fluid with that. You can make adjustments, and then knowledge. The more education you have, the better decisions you're going to be able to make.
And I know one of the big deterrents, especially among people my age, is like, well, it's really going to affect you socially. And it will, in instances. But at the same time, when everyone would go out on a Saturday night, like I wasn't eating 6 slices of pizza at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like I would go into my fridge and eat like an apple, which I know isn't what people are looking for, but I'm not ostracized, like I'm eating with other people. I could get French fries, like things like that, where I can still indulge and hang out with my friends. You can eat it Outback. You just have to like read stuff. Like it really doesn't, there are things that will be difficult. But I mean, I've traveled all over the world and it hasn't been hard for me to maintain my vegan diet. Like so many different countries, and it's because it's just becoming so well known and people are paying attention to what they're eating more. Not just vegans, like people are just paying more attention to their food. It's just easier when you go out and when you travel, and you don't have to worry it's like not gonna affect you socially anymore, like it did when I started.
Something I suggest to everyone, I don't care how you're eating, but one of the first steps is when you have extra time, go to the grocery store and spend the time reading every single label of the stuff you buy, because that alone is going to make you put so many of those things right back on the shelf. And it's a start. Again, more knowledge.
Yeah.
That's great. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
No problem.
If people have questions, I'll probably send them your way, if that's okay.
That works.
Thanks.
No problem.